You do not serve Gondek. You serve us.
I do not serve you.
us. You don't serve
serve
us.
the institution.
You don't serve us.
I serve
There you go.
You police, you should be arresting Antifa. They're the ones that attacked him. What are you cowards doing arresting this guy?
Just for those who are wondering, well, what's this all about? What's the video involved? We had a couple of journalists on the scene in front of Western Canada High School, my old alma mater, when there was a tussle between different young people over, I'm not even sure what the issue was. I think it might have been over a trans issue. So I don't know. But we covered it, and there was some pushing and shoving, and we aired, I think, 25 minutes worth of footage. Like, it's all there. And for these cops to say, no, show us the rest of it, I can't help but think that they're actually trying to find some dirt on Josh Alexander, who we would consider the good guy here. He was, I think, the victim of this assault. I think that the cops are trying to dig up something on the victim. I've seen this happen by police before, and I want to fight it. I don't think that Rebel News should have to cough up our material to the cops just because they didn't do their own work. It's 9:19 a.m. At 10 a.m., I have a hearing here at the Calgary Court of King's Bench. The Calgary Police Service has issued a production order through a judge saying if we don't hand over certain materials within 30 days, we could be subject to punishments, including, it says right there in the order, prison. Well, it's been more than 30 days. Today is day 49. Sarah Miller, our lawyer, let me say hello and thank you for being here. We know you from your excellent work with Arthur Pavlovsky. The court and the law treats seizing records from journalists in a special way. Police just can't come and seize our files, can they?
Right, so they do need a production order, but they also need to get the production order from the right level of court, and they need to satisfy certain questions to get that production order when they're talking about evidence from a journalist organization. So that's the issue for today's appearance, is the judge that issued the order didn't have the right sections of the criminal code in front of him to know that he didn't have the jurisdiction, so it seems. So we're going to go in. We have Calgary Police has endorsed my consent order.
Oh, they finally did, because when we spoke a few days ago, they had not yet signed on that, so we were going to have a tussle today.
Yes, so we've got the Calgary Police Service, their director of legal services has signed the consent order now. They've agreed that, what we've put forward to them, we wrote a letter to them saying this is how it should have proceeded. We don't think the jurisdiction is correct, that kind of thing. They've conceded to that, and so they've now signed the consent order. We're going to go in and explain it to the court, hopefully get the previous order that you're now overdue on, so to speak, overturned and quashed, and we'll go from there.
Can I ask you when they finally signed this consent order? Because last time we spoke, they hadn't done it yet.
So I don't know exactly what day. I was obviously in court yesterday with Arthur. I think I had it on Friday. It may have been earlier than that, though. I honestly don't recall.
Okay, but it was pretty close to it. Anyways, I'm glad to hear that. That's basically the Calgary Police Service admitting that their court order to seize our materials was invalid. Am I correct in saying that? They're basically admitting what they tried to do had no basis in law, frankly, was illegal.
Yeah, I wouldn't use the word illegal, but certainly that they misstepped, they didn't follow the right procedure, and so they're agreeing that order is no longer valid.
Now, I understand what an ex parte hearing is. In Latin, that means the other side's not there. Only one side is there. And that's used for very special reasons when you don't want to give the other side notice. If you're doing a raid on a biker gang, for example, you don't want to let them know that the raid is coming. So I can understand that. Why would the Calgary Police Service have an ex parte hearing in secret and use secret documents to get a production order against Rebel News? I don't quite understand. And I understand you asked the cops for their secret documents. You asked for what they showed the judge. Have they gotten back to you yet? I remember when we spoke about this a week ago, they had not. Have they yet disclosed to you the secret information they told the judge in a secret hearing?
Right. So when we asked for the records that they had produced to the judge in in support of this, they said they wouldn't give them to us, or that they couldn't give them to us, and that we should go to the courts. Well, we went to the courts, and of course it's all under seal. We can't access anything. They're saying there's nothing there. And this is not unusual for this type of production, right? Remember, we are talking about a criminal investigation, some fairly serious charges that have been laid, including sexual assault, or that we understand have been laid based on the order. Has nothing to do with Rebel News, but they don't necessarily want to have criminals have a heads up about the evidence that's being collected, or any opportunity for the evidence to be destroyed before they get the order in place.
Right, but this was used to get an order against us, frankly, against me. When the order said there could be prison, I presume that would fall on me. So the likelihood of me being in prison today, you're saying, is now gone. That I will not be in prison. I didn't think it was very high, but if the police were not consenting to it, there was a chance of it. You're saying that I will not be jailed today.
That's right. No, there should be no jail today, as far as I know, unless you've been doing something else that I'm not aware of.
Not that I know of. It was just a little bit startling to get this order from the police. A surprise, hand over all your files or go to prison. I'm not used to that.
Well, and the way that they purported to serve it, right, which was part of our correspondence to the police, they just sent it to a generic Rebel News email address.
Yeah, that's not real law. Like there were so many things wrong with it. I counted 5 things wrong with it. Wrong court, wrong burden of proof, wrong way of serving it, wrong standard of law. There was so many things wrong with this. Is the Calgary Police Service just that useless? Or do you think that there was a little bit of a let's get rebel here, no matter how?
Well, I actually think that, maybe I'm naive, or maybe I have too much faith in the system. I actually think the criminal code changed a few years ago. And although a couple of years ago sounds like a lot to you or I, we're talking about police officers who are front of line, who aren't necessarily dealing with obtaining evidence from journalists.
Well, surely this cop worked with a lawyer. Like the Calgary Police has lawyers, the Attorney General has lawyers. Surely this was a lawyer before they went after Rebel News. I can't help but think, Sarah, we fight with police forces around the world. Seriously, we've sued police in Toronto, in Montreal, the RCMP, even in Australia. We fight with police all the time, but the only police force that has tried to seize our documents with a punitive production order are the Calgary Police. And I wonder if that's a coincidence, because we have scrutinized their misconduct in Arthur Pavlovsky's case, like that gangland style arrest of Arthur on the highway. That's not policing, that's shock and awe to terrorize people. The way they arrested Tim Stevens in front of his family, the way they threatened to taser Ocean Weisblatt. This is one of the most abusive police forces in the country in my books, and we have documented every step of the way. I can't help but think this was some cop who said, squash Rebel News. No other police force in the world has tried to seize our documents other than these. I don't know. This is all my speculation. We don't know what's in the mind of these guys, but clearly knowing the law is not in their mind either.
Yeah, I'm of the sense of, I don't know if they got legal advice before. I don't know that they do that as practice when they're getting production orders. I think that it was ignorance of the law rather than anything purposeful, but we'll see how they proceed going forward. If they go and get an order from the higher court, there's no reason at this point, in my estimation, to keep it ex parte, right? So we've asked for notice. Hopefully they'll give us notice going forward, and we'll see how they conduct themselves.
Just for those who are wondering, well, what's this all about? What's the video involved? We had a couple of journalists on the scene in front of Western Canada High School, my old alma mater, when there was a tussle between different young people over, I'm not even sure what the issue was. I think it might have been over a trans issue. So I don't know. But we covered it, and there was some pushing and shoving, and we aired, I think, 25 minutes worth of footage. Like, it's all there. And for these cops to say, no, show us the rest of it, I can't help but think that they're actually trying to find some dirt on Josh Alexander, who we would consider the good guy here. He was, I think, the victim of this assault. I think that the cops are trying to dig up something on the victim. I've seen this happen by police before, and I want to fight it. I don't think that Rebel News should have to cough up our material to the cops just because they didn't do their own work. There were plenty of cops there They witnessed things for themselves. They could have videotaped it. I do not work for the Calgary Police. I don't work for any police. And for them to think they can just take our journalists' stuff and throw me in prison as the order threatened if I don't give it, I think this is something we have to stand firm on. And we aired 25 minutes of the crime. And I think the cops were just twisting the knife in, and I'm going to fight them every bloody step of the way. I don't think they're done today. We'll find out soon, but I don't think they're done with us.
Yeah, I suspect that this is only step one. We'll see what kind of production order they get in the future, what other steps they want to take against you guys. Certainly, I don't know what's in their minds, but it's unlikely that they're completely done with this.
Other media companies in the country have been raided by the police before. Vice has been, the CBC has been, and all the journalists, NGOs come to their aid. The Canadian Associations of Journalists, the Canadian Journalists for Free Expression, all these do-gooder groups swarm to help Vice, swarm to help CBC. I wonder if any of them will give a damn that it's Rebel News being raided by police, even though the precedents we are going to set in this case will redound to the benefit of every journalist in the country.
Yeah, like I said, this is new law, really, like new sections of the criminal code only implemented a few years ago. There's very limited case law on this. So absolutely going forward, all of this is going to be precedential new case law that helps every journalist.
I want to ask you a question that I asked you before for the first time, and I want to ask it again because I feel like I'm fighting here not just for Rebel News, but I really do feel like I'm fighting for any independent journalists who are left in this country. And I know that CBC journalists are really government journalists, like they literally are. And these days, most newspaper journalists are paid by Trudeau. They literally are. But there are some independent-minded journalists left, and we're one of them. And it falls to us to bear the burden of these legal battles, which is not how it always was. I remember when I was young, all the media companies would get together, pool their money, and hire one lawyer to represent like 10 media companies, and they'd go to court and say, Your Honor, we represent these 10 media companies, and we're here for freedom of speech. That doesn't happen anymore. It falls to Rebel News to carry that burden. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but I want to tell our viewers how much this fight for freedom has cost. I received your first bill for $9,000, and that was before we even set foot in court today. If they file another production order, if they keep going at us, this will be expensive. And I just want people to know that. We're fighting this because of our own principles, but we're fighting this to set a precedent, because if we don't, who will? And I don't want to live in a country where the cops can simply send you an email and say, give us all your private information or go to prison. That is not the Canadian way. And I'm not covering up for any criminal. We aired the footage of the crime before the cops even got back to their office. What kind of a legal fee are we looking at to fight this for freedom? Because no one else is.
So today, obviously, hopefully, will be very short, so very small incremental legal costs. But if they are going to bring another application, if they're going to give us notice, if the court wants written submissions, this could get up to a $20,000 legal bill because of the work that would be required to respond and to make novel arguments that just haven't been before the court yet. So,
what do you think? I mean, I feel like I can't roll over. I feel like anything you give away to the state, you'll never get back. I mean, when I sued Stephen Guilbeault for blocking us on Twitter, people said, oh, that's small. What are you doing? That's ridiculous. No, it's the principle that if you let them get away with this and with that, then it's like the camel's nose in the tent. Soon they'll be inside. I feel like you have to fight these incursions all the time. Even if you lose, you have to fight them, because every once in a while you'll win. And I truly believe, Sarah, that we are in a dark age when it comes to media freedom. I feel like most journalists have been co-opted. The civil liberties associations have been hitting the snooze button on their alarm clock for 3 years now. And I don't think it's just my quarrelsome nature. I think that this is crazy to get an email from a cop saying, hand us over all your files in 30 days or go to jail. And that just pricks something in me. And I feel like I have to fight it. And, no one has an extra 20 grand kicking around. And so I always go back to our viewers and say, please help. And I'm sure they are tired of it. But I just think that if we don't fight this, it'll be more and it'll be more and it'll be more the next time.
Well, and today is a perfect example, right? Like they went and got this order. They didn't follow the procedure that's set out in the criminal code. Why not set them in their place, right? Not to say you're against the investigation or undermining the investigation, but to say there are rules in place that you have to follow. And if you don't, maybe the next time it's going to be a bigger impact, right? And if they're not held to the standard of law, the rule of law that's set out in our statutes, that's what this is about, right? It's just to follow the law that's set out in our statutes. And if that means eventually that evidence is seized by journalists, at least it is done through a rule of law and through the right legal tests.
Well, there you have it. Let me check my watch. It's now 9:33. Our hearing is in 27 minutes. It sounds like at the last hour, the police said, oh, okay, fine. We didn't do it right. But that they're obviously going to come back again. We have to fight them. I believe that this is my duty. If I were simply guided by rational commercial thoughts, I wouldn't fight any of these legal cases. Very few media do because they're expensive. I mean, you know, there's a Jewish saying, if not you, who? And if not now, when? I mean, if we don't fight this, then who will? And if we don't fight it now, when do you fight it? I really feel we have an obligation. And if you agree with me, please go to defendrebelnews.com. And I wish other media companies would help us. I wish these so-called free speech groups, the Canadian Association of Journalists, Canadian Journalists for Free Expression, Canadian Civil Liberties Association, PEN Canada, Amnesty International. That's a handful of so-called civil liberties groups, all of whom are silent here. I wish they'd help because I could use the help, but I can't count on their help, so I have to make my own help. And if you can help me, please do. Thanks very much. I'll give you an update later on.